with you?
And also with you.
Well, school is out now for the children, and some of you are making plans for the summer to be away on vacation, taking a break for a while. I was looking up a room to stay in because my wife Denise and I are going to Ohio to visit my family. You might reasonably ask why I don't stay with my relatives, but that's another sermon. So I'm looking and I see that this hotel chain has this deal where if you stay 2 nights, you get the 3rd night free, which is nice. So I got out my strong reading glasses and began reading the fine print, which suddenly turned this red carpet of welcome into a legal document of exclusions and exceptions to the rule. And what I read is that 2 consecutive nights at the same place counts only as 1 night's stay. In other words, I need 2 different nights at different locations to get the 3rd night free. Right? You all follow that. It took me 30 minutes to arrive at that conclusion. Summer travel, room reservations, kayak search engines are part of what we now call the hospitality industry. Welcome to the hospitality industry. In our time, hospitality brings to mind entertainment and pampered service. In our time, hospitality brings to mind the thread count of Egyptian cotton sheets resting upon sleep-numbered beds individually set for your comfort. Why then are we having a series of messages on the Christian practice of hospitality when hospitality to us is more about the Martha Stewart decor in the hotel lobby than it is about the servant stance of Jesus of Nazareth? We all know that the hospitality industry as a business involves risk. But the church's practice of welcoming those who do not have, in the minds of many, the proper social currency is both risky business and, I might add, the most compelling virtue of the Christian faith in a hostile world. This notion of the hospitality of Christ. So that's why we have to take a look at it over the next 2 weeks as a Christian community. So what does it mean when Christians speak of not the theory of hospitality, not the theology of hospitality, but the practice of hospitality? In a sermon on the mission of the church, Matthew uses these words from the lips of Jesus. Whoever welcomes you welcomes me. And whoever welcomes me welcomes the one who sent me. This is a cycle of welcome that connects the invisible God and the first century Jesus to the human act of welcoming whoever. In her book on a people's history of Christianity, Dorothy Bass defines hospitality this way. It is the practice of welcoming those whom Jesus calls the least of these into the heart of community. Welcoming brings others to our hearts. The least of these for Jesus included, among others, the stranger, those forced into prostitution, the leper, the dying, just to name a few. It was Jesus' hospitality offered in the name of a God who loves the world that cost him his life. Love cost him his life. So it begs the question, are you sure you want to join a church that pays more attention to the everlasting love of God than it does to the social currency that certain kinds of people that we label as less than worthy of God? Are you sure? Are you really sure you want to become a part of this kind of a church? Are you certain you want to cast your lot with a congregation that has a welcome mat at the door that says open hearts, open minds, and open doors? Do you know how volatile that is? Jesus welcomes people not because he looks in their face or stares at them and they're standing in the culture. He does it because he sees their heart. And he welcomes them. There's no other criteria that I can see. If I welcome another, I welcome Christ. If I reject another, Matthew says, I reject Christ. Many years ago, I was appointed by the bishop to serve a congregation on the south side of Virginia. I was welcomed there by Steve, who at that time was the veteran pastor 12 years at the First Presbyterian Church on Main Street. The Presbyterian Church was on this side of Main Street. The Main Street Methodist Church that I pastored was on the other side of the street. The Episcopal Church was on the other side of the block, and the Roman Catholic Church was a little further, and the First Baptist Church was not far from there. So there we all are. It's a holy place. Or something. As we gather here on this day, Steve is now in his church in another part of the state, preaching his last sermon as a full-time minister. He retires today after 39 years as a pastor. So that came to mind as I was thinking about this story of hospitality. Here is a story from Steve's life that has always impacted me. An African-American man and his daughter moved into this community where we were living from New York. They had been worshiping in New York in the Bronx in an interracial Presbyterian church. You must understand that in this town that we were now in, including the Methodist church, I might add, there was no such thing as interracial anything. It is a foreign practice. But when this father and daughter arrived at First Presbyterian Church on Main Street, they found a congregation that worshiped as they were used to worshiping, and they found a pastor by the name of Steve who welcomed them and invited them to join the church. Now, in the Presbyterian Church, you are voted into the congregation by a group called the Session, which includes 6 duly elected laypersons from the congregation who are called elders. So you have these 6 elders, laypersons in the church, and the pastor who make up the session. And they vote on who becomes a member.